ignoring the ranger's warning. A young British woman nearly loses her life on a wildlife adventure in Tanzania. Charlotte, a 27-year-old woman from Manchester, England, arrived in Tanzania to fulfill her dream of a safari in the vast Serengeti. This untamed land stretched endlessly under the harsh sun, where golden grasslands blended with the whisper of the wind and distant sounds of nature. With a heart full of passion, she had long awaited the moment to witness this majestic wilderness. With her own eyes, before the journey began, experienced rangers, led by Juma, gathered the group of tourists for a briefing. With a stern voice, Juma looked each person in the eye and warned, "You must stay inside the jeep at all times. The protective iron cage is there for a reason. No one is allowed to step out of the vehicle under any circumstances. Wild animals can attack suddenly, and their behavior is unpredictable. We've seen many cases tourists think they're safe, but one small mistake can cost you your life." Despite hearing the warning clearly, Charlotte, a passionate animal lover who had watched countless nature documentaries, remained unshaken in her belief. She thought to herself, "If I show them love, they'll sense it and won't harm me." Little did she know, this naivety was quietly leading her to the edge of life and death. The safari began like a dream. For Charlotte, during the first 2 days, she and the group marveled at Tanzania's wild beauty from the safety of the jeep. Herds of zebras galloped across the vast plains, their black and white stripes rippling like waves. Graceful giraffes stretched their long necks to nibble leaves from tall trees, their silhouettes etched against the deep blue sky. In the distance, the low roar of lions echoed, mysterious and powerful, making Charlotte's heart race with excitement. She sat close to the window, eyes shining, hands never leaving her camera, but deep inside, she longed to step outside and touch that wild world. On the third day, the jeep stopped near a dense bush, where sunlight filtered through the leaves, creating patches of light and shadow. In the shade, a majestic lioness lay resting. Her golden fur shimmered in the sunlight, like a living tapestry, and her sharp eyes quietly scanned the surroundings, exuding the vigilance of an apex predator. Charlotte couldn't look away. "She's incredible," she whispered to herself, her voice trembling with emotion. "I need to get closer for a photo." She gripped her camera tightly, an overwhelming urge rising within her, as if the lioness were calling to her. Juma's warning flashed in her mind. No one is allowed to step out of the vehicle under any circumstances. But Charlotte, driven by her intense love and naive belief that animals could sense her heart, brushed aside her hesitation. "She'll understand me," she told herself, her hand shaking as she opened the jeep door. A small click echoed in the stillness, and she stepped out. The heat from the ground rose through her shoes, the air carrying the scent of dry grass and dust. Charlotte took slow steps toward the lioness, camera raised, an innocent smile on her lips. In that moment, she believed her love would shield her from any danger. In what felt like an eternity, the lioness lifted her head, her fierce golden eyes locking onto Charlotte. The air grew heavy, as if every sound of the vast savanna was swallowed by the terrifying space between them. Charlotte stood frozen, her heart pounding, but her eyes still held a dreamy innocence. She believed her love and sincerity could reach the heart of this wild beast, that they could connect like in the fairy tales she once read. The lioness rose slowly, muscles rippling beneath her golden fur, each sinew visible like a perfect fighting machine. The only sound was the gentle rustle of the wind through the dry grass, a haunting backdrop to the looming threat. With unbelievable naivety, Charlotte took another small step forward, her trembling hand raising the camera. "Just one photo," she whispered, her voice faltering with a mix of nervousness and excitement. But before her words could fade, the lioness acted. Like lightning tearing through the sky, she charged with terrifying speed, primal power unleashed in every movement. Charlotte had no time to react. A short, earth-shaking roar filled the air, and in an instant, the beast knocked her to the ground. The impact was so strong that she fell backward, her camera flying from her hands and shattering on the dry earth. Charlotte's scream rang out, but was quickly choked off as the lioness's sharp claws tore into her shoulder and back. Deep gashes immediately welled with blood, staining her pristine white safari shirt. Pain spread like wildfire. but she couldn't break free. The lioness pinned her down with heavy front paws, the pressure nearly suffocating her. Its hot breath blasted against her face, carrying the pungent smell of blood and raw meat. Gleaming white teeth bared, inches from her neck, ready to strike at any moment. Charlotte felt death closing in, her eyes wide with sheer terror. Not far away, atop the jeep, the other tourists bore witness to the entire terrifying spectacle. Their screams erupted in a frenzy, tearing through the stillness of the savannah. Yet not a single soul dared to stir. A middle-aged woman clutched her face, sobbing uncontrollably, tears spilling through her fingers as she couldn't bear to watch any longer. A man scrambled for his phone, desperate to call for help, but his hands trembled so fiercely he couldn't even press the numbers. "Save her, do something." A feeble voice cried out from the back, but silence was the only reply. Fear engulfed them all, freezing them into motionless shadows, powerless against nature's might. They knew any move could provoke the lioness to turn on the whole group, and in that moment, they could only stand and stare, hearts hammering in desperate dread. Charlotte, trapped beneath the beast's crushing weight, felt her body breaking. Under the strain, blood from her wounds seeped into the earth, pooling in a dark crimson stain. She struggled to whisper, her voice faint, "Please, I don't want to hurt you." But the lioness neither understood nor cared. It growled low, its icy, piercing eyes locked on its prey, jaws inching closer. Poised to end it all, while the tourists remained paralyzed with horror, Juma leapt into action asp. With reflexes sharpened by years as a ranger, he reached for the rifle bolted to the jeep. His movements were swift, unwavering. He sprang from the vehicle, his feet touching the parched ground with a quiet yet resolute thud. Without a second's hesitation, Juma raised the rifle skyward and fired. A deafening blast thundered across the savannah, like a roaring clap of thunder, overpowering the lioness's growl. The sound rippled outward, sending flocks of birds scattering in a panic from nearby trees. The lioness flinched, ears flattening, her steely gaze flickering with uncertainty. She halted her assault on Charlotte, her taut frame caught between her prey and this new menace. Juma didn't waste the moment. Gripping a long stick in his other hand, he swung it rhythmically as he marched straight toward the ferocious beast. His voice boomed, deep and commanding, "And a Numa," Swahili ringing out, meaning back off. Back off. His steps were steady, his eyes never leaving the lioness, radiating unshakable confidence. The stick sliced through the air like a warning, paired with his unflinching stance, forming an invisible wall that held danger at bay. The lioness crouched low, claws still sunk into Charlotte's shoulder, but her focus wavered. Her blazing golden eyes darted between Juma and the helpless figure pinned beneath her. Her growls intensified, as if daring him, yet her tail twitched, faintly a telltale sign of unease. Juma pressed forward, his shouts growing sharper, each stride carrying the strength of a man who'd faced peril countless times. The tension stretched on, endless and suffocating. The tourists held their breath, pulses racing, eyes unblinking. Charlotte, crushed under the beast, could only whimper faintly, her shaking hands clawing at the dusty ground. The stench of fresh blood mingled with the midday sun's searing heat, nearly choking her. Then, abruptly, the lioness unleashed a final roar, fury laced with surrender. She released Charlotte, claws retracting from her shoulder, leaving jagged, gaping wounds. With a mighty bound, she wheeled around and bolted into the brush, her gleaming golden coat vanishing into the shadowy thicket. The crack of branches and rustle of leaves faded into the distance, leaving behind a weighty silence. Juma rushed to Charlotte's side. She lay sprawled on the ground, blood soaking her clothes, her face ghostly pale from pain and terror. "You're safe now, don't be afraid," he said, his tone warm yet steady. He knelt beside her, his keen eyes swiftly assessing her state. Deep gashes on her shoulder and back bled freely, but her shallow breaths proved she still clung to life. Wasting no time, Juma lifted Charlotte, his sturdy arms hoisting her from the dirt. She stumbled, legs barely holding her weight, but he gripped her firmly, guiding her step by step to the jeep. "We need to get you back now," he urged, voice tight with haste. The tourists, shaken from their stupor, flung the doors open. A woman shouted, "Oh my God, is she okay?" while a young man rifled clumsily through the first aid kit, hands quaking so hard he dropped rolls of bandages. Juma nodded to them. "Get the gauze ready, fast." He eased Charlotte onto the back seat. She groaned in agony but managed to faint. "Thank you." He met her gaze, his expression softening briefly, though still grave. "You nearly died. We've got to treat those wounds before it's too late." The Jeep's engine roared to life, shattering the oppressive stillness. It rolled forward, carrying Charlotte and the group away from the sight of their brush with death. Though blood still flowed and pain racked her, Charlotte knew she'd been spared thanks to Juma, the quiet hero of the wild dot at the ranger station. Charlotte sat trembling on a wooden chair as a nurse bandaged her shoulder and back. The wounds, though not fatal, were deep claw marks that made her wince with every touch. Tears streaked her face, not just from pain, but from the dawning realization of her own folly. She gambled her life on the naive belief that her love for wildlife could bridge any divide. Now, the memory of the lioness's frigid stare and resounding roar sent shudders through her. Juma stood nearby, watching her with a stern yet caring look. When the nurse finished, he stepped closer, his voice low and firm. "You're lucky to be alive. Only experience can face a lioness, not love." His words sliced through Charlotte's delusions. She bowed her head, whispering, "I was wrong. I thought I could understand her." Juma gave a slight nod, resting a hand on her shoulder in comfort, though his gaze stayed resolute, driving home the lesson she'd carry forever. Back in England, Charlotte bore faint scars on her skin, but the deeper shift was in her spirit. Her innocent faith in bonding with wild creatures had crumbled, replaced by a profound respect for their untamed essence. She threw herself into advocacy campaigns, sharing her tale to highlight safari safety and nature conservation. In her talks, she often spoke of Juma and the rangers, those who'd wielded skill and bravery to pull her back from the edge. Charlotte's story became a vivid warning. Dismissing advice and letting naivety lead could spell disaster, yet it was also a tribute to rangers like Juma, who silently shielded visitors in the perilous wild. Each retelling held the lioness's piercing glare, a memory etched deep, a costly lesson she'd never forget. Her ordeal stands as a stern reminder: never underestimate the wild or the warnings of rangers in preserves. No matter how gentle or serene an animal seems, don't rush in for a photo. You can't guess what's in its mind. Instinct rules them. In these sanctuaries, rangers like Juma are your lifeline. Their rules aren't mere suggestions but hard-earned wisdom born from facing hidden dangers. To explore more gripping and fascinating tales of the animal kingdom, subscribe to the Animal Kissa channel today. Thanks for listening. See you in the next videos.